My name is Elena, I'm 48, and this might sound like a confession, because in some ways, it is. I've been married to Daniel for almost 19 years. He kept his arms there for a few seconds longer than usual, then patted my hip twice, affectionate, maybe, and walked out of the room. It's not that I don't love him. I do. But somewhere in the routine of grocery lists and client meetings and trying not to burn dinner, I stopped feeling like a woman. I started feeling more like a partner in a business. A co-parent. A roommate who sleeps beside him but rarely with him. I tried to talk to him about it. Once. We were lying in bed after a party, and I'd had a glass of wine too many. I said, "Do you ever think we've just lost something?" He looked over at me, half asleep. "We're just tired," he said. "Everyone's tired these days." And I nodded. Because maybe he was right. But maybe that's the problem, we were both tired, but of different things. I started going to the gym again in January. It wasn't about weight or looks. It was about feeling strong in a body I hadn't recognized in a while. I told myself I needed to sweat more, breathe deeper, find some part of myself that wasn't waiting for someone else to notice she still existed. That's where I met Jace. He was my personal trainer, 35, confident without being cocky, intense in a way that made you straighten your spine. He was one of those people who looked at you when you spoke, really looked. And when he corrected, I tried to meet his eyes, tried to find that flicker of the man who once couldn't keep his hands off me. Instead, he handed me a bowl of reheated pasta and asked if I'd remembered to pick up his dry cleaning. I didn't answer. I just stood there, bowl in hand, staring at the spot on the floor where our dog used to sleep before she died last year. That was the moment. That exact moment, standing in the kitchen in my gym clothes, pasta steaming. Jace had offered to stay back after the session to walk me through some core work, said I was overcompensating with my lower back. He was professional, focused. But there was this moment when he adjusted my shoulder, his palm on my skin, his breath close to my ear, when everything in my body stilled. Not because I was afraid, but because it felt good, innocent, charged, both at once. I shook it off. When I walked in the door, Daniel barely looked up from his laptop. He had the news playing low on the TV, a half-drunk cup of coffee next to him, and our living room lamp flickering, something he said he'd fixed 3 weeks ago. "Hey," I said, trying to sound warm. He looked at me. "You were gone a while." "Yeah." Jace stayed after to show me something. Daniel cut in before I could finish. "Did he charge you for that?" I blinked. "No. He was just helping me." He nodded slowly. That was it. No follow-up. No curiosity. No "how was your workout" or "how are you?" Just a mental checkmark on a spreadsheet I was no longer allowed to see. Later that night, he reached for me in bed. That quiet, practiced reach, fingers on my waist, tugging gently. His body always knew what to do. But lately I didn't. I couldn't figure out how to want it. Still, I turned toward him. He kissed me, mouth warm, familiar, and slid a hand under my shirt. But something about the way he touched me felt mechanical. Like a gesture he'd rehearsed too many times. A routine. "Wait," I whispered. He stopped immediately. "What's wrong?" "Nothing, I searched for something that wouldn't make him feel small." "I'm tired." Daniel sighed and rolled onto his back. The silence between us was sharp. "You're always tired," he muttered. I closed my eyes. "That's not fair." "It's not." His voice was flat, not angry, just tired. The same tired he accuses me of. "It feels like you don't even want me anymore, Elena." I wanted to scream, "I do. I want you to see me first." But instead, I said nothing. I rolled over, pulled the covers up, and let the silence settle again. The next day, at the gym, Jace greeted me with a smile that lingered a second too long. "Back for more," he teased. I smiled. It felt easy. Warm. "You're the only one who notices when I'm off balance," I joked. He grinned and gestured to the mat. "That's what I'm here for." Later, as I struggled through a plank hold, he came around to gently press on my lower back. Engage your core. Good, hold it. His hand was steady, guiding, but it lingered, just a beat longer than it should have. And I didn't move. I didn't tell him to stop. I didn't even want to. And that scared me. Because it wasn't about sex. It was about attention. About being witnessed. At home, Daniel washed the dishes and left a chocolate bar on my pillow, a peace offering maybe. But it felt like he was apologizing for something he didn't understand. When I said thank you, he smiled. I remember you used to sneak these into your purse during movies. It should have been sweet. Nostalgic. But it just reminded me of how far we drifted. Like he was trying to connect through old memories instead of making new ones. I stared at the chocolate and thought about Jace's hand on my back. The warmth. The tension. And I thought about how Daniel, my husband of 19 years, doesn't touch me like that anymore. I started pulling away before I even realized I was doing it. It wasn't dramatic. I didn't stop answering his texts or slam doors or pick fights. No. It was smaller than that, like taking longer in the shower or brushing my teeth while the door was closed. Subtle distances. Protective inches. One morning, Daniel came up behind me while I was pouring coffee and smacked my butt playfully, the way he's always done, and I almost dropped the mug. It wasn't that it hurt. It just startled me. It felt off. Wrong timing. Wrong tone. He chuckled. Still got it, he said. I smiled, but it felt forced. Like I had to meet him in a moment I wasn't even part of. Later that week, we were in bed, lights out, silence between us. He reached over, fingers tracing my hip under the blanket. I froze. Not obviously, just a small tightening of breath, a stillness in my spine. His hand paused. Then he leaned in to kiss me. His mouth was soft, familiar, and I felt nothing. Not repulsion. Not comfort. Just a dullness. A numb kind of confusion that left me asking myself, why don't I feel anything? He kept going, his lips trailing down my jawline, his hand sliding beneath my shirt, and my mind was already gone. I was already outside of my own body, watching the scene like it was happening to someone else. I gently pulled away, not sharply. Just enough. Everything okay? He whispered. Yeah, I lied. But it wasn't okay. I didn't know what I was doing anymore. I didn't know how to be close to him without pretending. And the guilt of that pretending, it weighed on me. The next morning, he made me breakfast. Scrambled eggs, avocado toast, coffee just the way I like it. He didn't say anything, just set it down in front of me with a quiet, heavy smile. And I looked at the plate, then at him, and I felt this wave of pressure, like I was supposed to reward the gesture with affection. Like love was a transaction I hadn't signed up for that day. He reached across the table, but it's like, if I don't react a certain way, it's like I've failed. Like something's wrong with me. He looked down at the table, his jaw tight. I miss you. That's all. I opened my mouth to speak, but I didn't know what to say. Because I miss me too. The woman who used to want to be touched. Who didn't flinch when her husband kissed her. Who didn't feel more seen by a man at the gym than the one she shares a home with. That night, I stood in front of the mirror brushing my hair, and I caught my reflection. Same face. Same body. Same tired eyes. But something in them had changed. Something I couldn't name yet. Something that scared me. I didn't mean to cry in a restaurant. But it happened. Right there, between the candle flickering on the table and the untouched glass of wine in front of me, the pressure just leaked out. Daniel had surprised me with a dinner reservation. No anniversary, no birthday, just a night out, he said. A nice place. White tablecloths, quiet piano music, dim lighting. The kind of place you take someone when you're trying. And I wanted to be grateful. I really did. But from the second we sat down, everything felt off. He reached for my hand across the table, his fingers warm, familiar, and I let him. But it didn't feel like comfort. It felt like duty. Like holding hands because that's what couples are supposed to do in public. Like clinging to something that was already drifting. So, he said, smiling, tell me something good. Anything. I smiled back, automatic. Let's see. The subtle jab. The mistrust. The way his eyes flickered down, then away, like he didn't believe me, or worse, like he didn't care enough to press. I felt it swelling in my chest, the frustration, the years of misfires, the countless moments I'd tried to explain myself and been met with silence or defensiveness. I put my fork down. Do you think I'm cheating on you? Daniel blinked. What? You heard me. No, he said, clearly caught off guard. Of course not. Because that's what it sounds like. Every time you bring him up, there's this tone, this thing in your voice. Like you're daring me to admit something. Daniel leaned back. I was just making conversation, but it was too late. Daniel froze, watching me. Elena, I shook my head. I don't know what's wrong with me, I whispered. I feel like I'm disappearing, and every time I try to talk to you, it's like you only half hear me. I've been trying. No, Daniel. You've been fixing things. Not hearing me. I'm not a sink to unclog or a bill to pay. I need you to see me. He was silent. His hands folded neatly on the table, like he was waiting for the moment to pass. And that's when it hit me. He wasn't confused. He wasn't angry. He was done. Not because he didn't love me, but because he didn't know how to love me now, the woman I've become. The woman who wants eye contact more than a kiss. Who wants conversation more than sex. Who wants to be touched without being claimed. I wiped my face, suddenly exhausted. The waiter approached, tentative. Is everything okay here? Daniel answered for both of us. We're fine, thank you. I nodded, though I wasn't fine at all. Later, in the car, we sat in silence. The streetlights passed over our faces like flickers in an old film reel. Daniel didn't touch my hand. I didn't reach for his. When we pulled into the driveway, he finally spoke. I didn't know you felt that lonely. And I wanted to say I didn't either. Not until someone else saw me. But I couldn't bring myself to say it. So I just whispered, now you do. And we both sat there, staring ahead. Two people in the same car, driving in different directions. It's strange how silence can feel louder than shouting. The week after the dinner, Daniel and I moved around the house like ghosts. We weren't angry exactly. Just quiet. Careful. Like we were afraid of stepping on the cracked floorboards between us. He still made coffee in the morning. Still folded my blanket when I left it on the couch. But his movements had a kind of distance to them, polite, restrained. As if he didn't want to ask how I was doing, because he already knew the answer. Or maybe because he didn't. One night, I found him in the garage, standing over a shelf of tangled cords and old tools we hadn't touched in years. He didn't hear me come in. He was just staring at the mess, like he didn't know where to start. I almost asked if he was okay. Almost said something soft. But the words caught in my throat, and I walked away instead. I missed him. Not just the man I married, but the way we used to make each other laugh with just a glance. The way we'd lie in bed with our legs tangled and our voices low, trading thoughts we hadn't even said out loud before. Now everything felt so measured. So formal. Like we were coworkers trying not to offend one another. I went to the gym more often, partly to keep moving, partly to avoid the house. Jace noticed the shift. You've been pushing hard lately, he said one afternoon, after I'd finished a grueling set of squats. I nodded, trying to stay sane. He handed me a towel, watching me carefully. That why you've been so quiet? I looked up at him, and for a moment, I saw something in his eyes I wasn't ready for. Something patient. Something kind. But I shook my head. Just tired. He didn't press. Just offered a small smile. You're not alone, you know. I went home. He was hurting, too. He just didn't know how to talk about it. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. I thought about what we'd lost, yes, but also about what we still had, even if it was buried. The question circled my mind like a whisper. Is there still something here worth saving? I didn't have an answer, but I knew I had to try. Or walk away. The middle, this ache of indecision, it was too heavy to carry much longer. I didn't expect him to come to bed that night. Lately, he'd been falling asleep on the couch, remote in hand, TV humming in the background, a quiet truce, I suppose. No confrontation. No cold shoulder. Just distance. But sometime after midnight, I heard his footsteps. The creak of the floor. The soft lift of the covers. He didn't say anything. Just lay down beside me. We stayed like that, backs turned, breaths uneven. And then, slowly, hesitantly, I felt his hand reach for mine beneath the sheets. Not possessive. Not lustful. Just searching. I didn't pull away. He exhaled softly. "I miss you," he said into the dark. His voice cracked at the edges. "I miss the way we used to be." My throat tightened. "So do I." Silence settled again, but it felt different this time. Not heavy, just fragile. Like something was trying to mend, but didn't know how. He turned to face me. I turned too. There wasn't a speech. No dramatic declarations or promises. Just eyes meeting in the quiet, old love flickering beneath the damage. "I don't know how to fix this," he admitted. "Me neither," I whispered. We stayed close. Foreheads touching. His hand brushed my cheek, and this time, I didn't flinch. It wasn't passion. It wasn't resolution. It was two people standing on broken ground, holding on to each other so they wouldn't fall through. He kissed my forehead soft, careful, with reverence. Like he wasn't asking for anything in return. I closed my eyes and let him stay there. And for that moment, it was enough. If you're listening to this, if you've made it this far, then maybe you understand. Or maybe you're where I was, quietly unraveling in the middle of a life you worked so hard to build. It's not always obvious when the disconnect begins. There's no alarm bell. No flashing sign that says this is where you stop being seen. It's slower. Like dust settling in a room you used to love. I spent years thinking I was fine. Daniel and I had what most people would call a good marriage. And we did. Bills were paid. Dinners cooked. Birthdays remembered. We laughed sometimes. Held hands at the movies. Made love even if it felt routine. Even if sometimes I laid there wondering why I didn't feel more. And when that numbness started creeping in, I didn't panic. I adjusted. I lowered my expectations like folding old clothes into smaller drawers. I thought, this is just marriage. This is what happens when you've been with someone for almost 2 decades. But what I didn't realize was how lonely a woman can feel while lying right next to the man she married. And that loneliness doesn't scream. It whispers. For me, it whispered through a gym session. Through a corrected plank. Through the steady hands of a man who wasn't my husband, but made me feel something I hadn't felt in a long time noticed. Jace didn't do anything inappropriate, not at first. He didn't seduce me. He didn't cross the line with words. But attention itself is powerful. Intimacy isn't just about sex. It's about presence. And the way someone looks at you like you're still there. That's what made me waver. Not lust. Not temptation. But the ache of being seen after feeling invisible for so long. I didn't cross the line. Not physically. But emotionally? Maybe I did. I started saving pieces of myself for the gym, the smiles, the stories, the energy. I gave Jace the version of me I used to be with Daniel. And when I came home, I gave my husband what was left. That's what broke me. And that's what almost broke us. I won't pretend we've healed everything. This isn't a fairy tale. There's no cinematic reconciliation. No passionate kiss in the rain. Just two people, sitting in the mess they helped create, trying to remember how to see each other again. And slowly we are. Not through sex. Not through date nights or flowers or forced gestures. But through honesty. We started asking each other harder questions. Started saying things that hurt. Started telling the truth, even when it made us uncomfortable. I told Daniel how I'd felt numb. How I'd started to look forward to someone else's attention. I expected him to yell. To shut down. To leave. But he didn't. He sat on the edge of the bed, jaw tight, eyes glassy, and said, I stopped seeing you the way you needed to be seen. That's on me. That moment changed something. It didn't erase the pain, but it cracked open a door we'd both kept shut, the door to being real with each other. And for the first time in years, I felt like we were choosing each other again. Not out of habit, not out of fear, but out of something deeper, a willingness to rebuild. If I've learned anything, it's this: love isn't a thing you fall into. It's something you tend. Something that withers when left untouched. It demands attention, presence, discomfort, honesty. And above all, it demands that you see each other. Not just as spouses. Not just as providers, parents, or roommates. But as people. Flawed. Changing. Still worthy of being chosen. So if you're listening, wondering if what you're feeling is real, if the emptiness means something's broken, don't wait for someone else to fix it. Speak up. Even if your voice shakes. Even if they don't understand at first. Because disappearing quietly is the easiest thing in the world. But coming back to yourself and to each other, that's the bravest thing you'll ever do.